Yeah, you're listening to Kaz. We just had a false start because I got all that echo on, and the only echo you get is when I go ka ka ka.
You're listening to the Casimir.
That's me.
Ka ka ka. Hasn't that been done today?
Ka ka ka.
90s.
You think so?
Casimir engine.
It's the Casimir engine. It's not ka ka ka.
Hey, we got halt proceedings right there because we got an apology to make, because last week I said, hey everybody, we got the new single by Virtue Mend featuring Aaron on vocals, and then I played an old track because I got a cold and wasn't very well. That's my excuse. So this week, by way of an apology, first track of the night is Virtue Mend with August and September featuring Aaron on vocals. You're listening to the Casimir Engine Show podcast. We're here for an hour with guests. Oh, yeah.
You're playing games. I don't like that. Watch what you say. I'm not your doormat. Stop giving up. Stay on the right path. Forgive yourself. I won't be angry with you when the feeling comes so strong. Got to fight to carry on. I know it's hard to, but always remember all the good things you do. You bring me flowers in the rain. You broke my heart and walked away. When fate came rushing through our door, the light began to fade. Through August and September, you bring me flowers in the rain. You broke my heart and walked away. When fate came crashing through our door, the light began to fade. Through August and September, you made a vow to live in love and swore an oath to God above. When fate came crashing through our door, now the light forever fades. In August and September. You bring me flowers in the rain. You broke my heart and walked away. When fate came crashing through our door, the light began to fade. In August and September, you made a vow to live in love and swore an oath to God above. When fate came crashing through our door, now the light forever fades. In August and September, you bring me flowers in the rain. You bring me flowers in the rain. The light began to fade. In August and September, you made a vow to live in love and swore an oath to God above.
It's Virtue Mend with Aaron on vocals. New single August and September. Sorry for not playing that last week and playing the last single that you had out. So it wasn't, yeah, it was bad, Kaz. Anyway, so let's get rid of that. Let's turn that into that, put that on there, and we should have, as usual, starting off on the wrong foot. The problem is I've just done like half an hour's work on this already because we had a guest. I had a transatlantic phone call with my guest of the evening, and more of that to come up in a minute. But what's on the show tonight, Kaz? Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to try and rush through a fair few things. Podcasting's changed my life. We've got a bit about that. 24 hours of incessant rain. Hey, we had a result down at Sainsbury's. This is real international stuff you got going on here, Kaz. Bit more on me ladder incident. Oh, you should have seen, if you're a first-time listener or you didn't hear last week's show, I fell off a ladder. You want to see the bruise. Well, you don't want to see it because it's where it is. But, oh, what a bruise. It was corker. If we got time, we got a bit of news, and then I've got to tell you, it's a funny, I think it's funny anyway. It had better be now, I've built it up. But Mrs. Engine and her eating habits, we had a bit of a situation early last week. And then we got some great music on the show tonight. I was contacted by the incredible Gdansk 81. They've only sent in a new EP. I've got a choice of 3 tracks and I'm going to try and play 2. We've also got music from Michael Frazer. He was on last week's show and we got a huge response to that. And also, we're going to be playing music by Eric Garwood from Iterations. We're going to be playing music from his EPs, Strange Attractors and Particle Movement Theory. Sounds well techie. I think you're going to love it. We had a chat with him over in that there Washington, in that there America place. But before we do that, we're going to go with a track from Gdansk 81's new EP. And this is a track called Ghosts. I think you're going to love it. Gdansk 81, all the way from that there Stockport near Manchester. I think, I think everybody's going to go mental in Stockport if I say it's near Manchester, because it's a big old place, is Stockport. So Gdansk 81, 10cc, all from Stockport. So yeah, if it's got a number in it and they're from Stockport, they're fantastic. How do we get in touch with Gdansk 81 and Virtue Mend? Tell us, Kaz. Well, Gdansk 81, spell it Gdansk 8 and a 1. The new EP is called Veneration Complex. You can get them on Twitter at Gdansk 81. And then you can find the EP on gdansk81.bandcamp.com. My knob slipped between my fingers then. And then Virtue Mend featuring Erin on vocals at Virtue Mend. That's VIRTUE Mend, MEND. At Virtue Mend on Twitter, virtuemend.bandcamp.com. You can get new single August and September. You can get it right there. How do we get in touch with the Casimir Engine Show? At Casimir Podcast on Twitter, at Casimir Podcast on Facebook, the Casimir Engine Show Podcast. If you want to write it out in full on Facebook, www.casimirengine.com. Whew, I'm flying through it. Absolutely flying through it. Right. Here's some news for you. So, this involves Herbie. So to feed Herbie, we used to have a special fork, the blue fork. And the blue fork, it was plastic, and we knew that was Herbie's fork. So when we gave him his like doggy sloppy dog food stuff, we knew that we used the blue fork, we could wash it and keep it in a special blue fork place in the kitchen. Well, the blue fork went missing. I think I've thrown it away. So we started to use an old metal fork. This is a riveting story, Kaz. Anyway, the metal fork was always kept in this special blue fork place in the kitchen. It found its way back into the food chain. Then Mrs. Engine found herself eating a nice salad with Herbie's dog food fork. Ugh. She's got a lovely wet nose, though. That's the important bit. And her coat's all nice and shiny. We got a massive response to Michael Frazer from Livingston in Scotland. We had a track called North on last week's show. This is a track called The Fish That Swallowed. What do you reckon? I missed A Fish That Swallowed the Moon. It was missing on my track listings. Pelonka class.
Shine until it's
I'll do it over and over and over.
That's Michael Frazer with The Fish That Swallowed the Moon. How do we get in touch with Michael Frazer? I tell you what, I'm going to put on... let me clear that because I've got some other stuff to do as well. Let me just get a bit of bed music on. Let's try that one. Right, you can get in touch with Michael Frazer. I don't know why do I an Australian accent? At Michael_Frazer, and you spell Frazer F-R-A-Z-3-R. That's on Twitter, at Michael_Frazer with a 3 instead of the E. And then Michael Frazer, F-R-A-Z-E-R, all one word, michaelfrazer.com. Get all his details, Spotify links, all that kind of malarkey. Oh, I've got some shout-outs. If you want to catch up with... If you're a podcast addict like what I've become because radio's rubbish, there's something about that woman who does the breakfast show on Radio 2 was married to Fatboy Slim. She lost, I don't know, 350,000 listeners in a month. That's a lot of listeners to lose, isn't it? So if you want to get in the podcast groove, I've found these UK-based podcasts. There's Beyond the Box Set, if you search for them on the Podbean app. That's podbean.com. If you get onto their website or onto the app and search for Beyond the Box Set, you can listen to them. Then you've got Stacey's Pop Culture Parlour, and that's at www.popcultureparlour.podbean.com, or just search for it, Stacey's Pop Culture Parlour, on the Podbean app. There you go. Hey, promoting other people's podcasts on your show. I'm a saint. What else you got for us, Kaz? Oh, I'll tell you what we have got. Let's get rid of that. Let's get that, because we're all of a bit of a change around features, and we've got...
just look at that. Light as a feather and trembling with naughtiness. Of course, the trouble with me is I never could say no. Naughty, but nice.
I bet you thought we've got away with it because he's got an interview on this one and it takes up too much time. We won't be able to fit naughty but nice in, but I can. Oh, I've had some this week, and I've checked them out, and these places all exist. First one that came in. I'm sniggering already like a school kid. Gary didn't say where he was from, Gary. Don't sit on the fence. Don't hide behind your Twitter page. Fanny Hands Lane, which is in England somewhere.
Naughty, but nice.
Fanny Hands Lane. Paul from Boston, what is in not Lincoln. There is one in Lincolnshire. This is in Massachusetts, in America. I know things like geography. Paul came in with Pig Turd Alley, which is in Sacramento. Where's Sacramento? Don't know. Robert from Glasgow, he's a regular on this. He came up with Shitterton. Haven't we had Shitterton before? Have we? I don't know who I'm asking. There's nobody else here. Herbie's not even here tonight. Shitterton's in Devon. And then Triple Black Amoeba John, Cockshoot Close in Oxford. That's a good one. Cockshoot Close. It's naughty.
Naughty.
But nice.
But nice. And we always finish off with a naughty banger. So we've had Shitterton in Devon, Pig Turd Alley in Sacramento, Fanny Hands Lane, somewhere in England, Cockshoot Close in Oxford. We've also got Shag Point. This came from Mark in York. Shag Point in New Zealand. New Zealand, g'day. Didn't we just beat them at Summit? And also the biggie, it came from Sue in York, Big York listenership. She came in, this is in Minnesota. The banger for this evening is Spunk Creek. It's in Minnesota. Thank you for that, Sue. It's lovely.
Naughty.
Like everything nice.
That is disgusting, isn't it? Let's just try and fit in a bit more Gdansk 81 from the new EP. And it is an absolute joy.
Oi, Casimir engine! I've listened to your show and it's a shambles!
We've got a track called Time of the Hawk. It's by Iterations. This is ahead of our chat with Eric, who is Iterations. This is from the album Particle Movement Theory. And Eric's coming up right after this. Time of the Hawk by Iterations. We had a chat with Eric Garwood, the man behind Iterations, and we had we talked for ages. It was over an hour anyway, so I've whittled it down. I didn't record half an hour of it. It was just a chat we had afterwards. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do another podcast, like a podcast extra, where we have the rest of the chat with Eric. So, yeah, let's have a chat with him.
8 out of 10 listeners voted the Casimir Engine Show podcast the best podcast in the world.
Hey, how you doing?
Is that Eric? I'm always waiting for somebody to say you've got the wrong number, you know, when I when I do this. But is that Eric Garwood, Iterations, and member of Washington DC-based synthwave duo Velocity 128?
That's right. How you doing?
Hey, thanks ever so much for joining us on the Casimir Engine Show podcast.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
No, really, really appreciate it. You sent me some stuff last week that kind of, well, I suddenly became a fanboy. I hope I wasn't like trolling you or something on the internet, because it was just fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
But it's not new.
No, it's so I've I've played drums in bands for years and years and years, and have released stuff with those various bands. But the stuff I've done by myself, which has been mostly the same kind of improvisational shoegaze inspired stuff, I've mostly just recorded it and kept it to myself. These 4 tracks, I actually worked with a friend of mine, my bandmate in Velocity 128, Jonathan Lim. He's had picked up all the production and mixing skills, and he had offered, he heard the tracks and offered to take him and make them actually sound good. So we took those old recordings, and he did a significant amount of work on them to bring him up to par. And
so how long? How old are we talking?
I recorded the first of those 4 tracks was recorded in 2014 when I first built. I built a relatively soundproof drum room in my basement, and so I when I've been in bands for a long time, I've been playing Roland V drums just out of convenience.
Yeah.
But I had wanted to have a real kit again. So I had to build this soundproof room for it. So it was literally the first recording I did were the drums on part 1 of those tracks. And I just improvised for a few minutes, not really knowing where I was going to go, and then start going from there. And that's how all those tracks came to be.
So are you as popular with the neighbours as every other drummer in the world then?
Well, I was as a kid. As a kid, I could be heard about a block and a half away. Now here, where I built it up against a poured concrete foundation that was already in my house in the basement, and actually you can't even hear it on the front porch. It's completely isolated, so it worked. So luckily, I get to keep in good relationship with the neighbors.
The thing I was most in, well, one of the things I was interested in is the stuff that you've done on the synthwave side. We'll come back to Strange Attractors.
Mm-hmm.
We'll come back to that in a minute. But your synthwave stuff, as a drummer, then I would have thought synthwave would have been particularly well. As a drummer, you wouldn't be a fan of that kind of genre because drum machines replaced drummers back in the 1980s. I don't know whether you know that.
Right. And in fact,
you don't have to lump all the kit around and stuff like that anymore. It comes in a little box.
Well, yeah, and which that part I truly enjoy and appreciate, because the one part I didn't like about playing live shows as a drummer was lugging my drum kit around to these places and climbing through back windows with a bass drum and down stairs and all that stuff. I don't miss all that. But so the way this came to be, and it's true, the only electronic music I ever really listened to, because I grew up with, Ride and My Bloody Valentine and Stereolab and The Cure, and that's really my foundation, Susie and the Banshees. So the only electronic music I listened to, which was only occasionally, would be like Depeche Mode or New Order. That was kind of my limit. Because as a drummer, I really didn't want to hear repetitive, drum box generated, beats.
Yeah.
What kind of happened was this friend of mine, the same friend that did the production work for me on Strange Attractors, he was the keyboard player in the band I used to be in, and he's always been a huge electronic music fan. That's really his background. So he got invited to this movie event in Washington, D.C. called Betamax Video Club. This was about 2 years ago, and he was invited to just DJ some music before and after the movie there.
Yeah.
Well, the guys who host it, they said, well, could you, how about doing some live music with, you said you have a friend of yours that, can do stuff and maybe play a synthesizer or something. So I came with him, and we just kind of improvised and didn't really know where it was going, and it kind of ended up pretty much just being what I understand now is techno.
Yeah.
And then the guy said, well, what about, making it more synthwave? And I was like, well, what's synthwave? And so he, played some, and I was like, oh, okay, I get it. It's just basically 80s kind of soundtrack, music. And I went home and wrote very, very rapidly about 20 tracks that we started playing live. And it all just kind of came out naturally, and I didn't listen to any more synthwave, and actually, I actually don't listen to synthwave at all. Which is probably really odd, but every once in a while I hear something I like.
Yeah.
But I honestly, as far as electronic music goes, the only thing I've really heard recently that I really enjoyed was Andy Bell, the guitar player from Ride, has his solo electronic project called Glock, and he just released it finally, and I actually really enjoy it. I kind of get it.
Yeah. Is it because you lived through all that 80s? Did you live through all the 80s? I don't even know how old you are.
I did. Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm a kid. Yeah, I'm in my early 40s. So yeah, I definitely. So the Particle Movement Theory, the album I released, my first synthwave album, the theme, which is, it didn't really affect the music I made. Just as far as when it was time to come up with song titles and album art and kind of a whole theme, is themed after the old Buck Rogers TV show from, I think it was like 1979 or something, or 81 when that show came out.
Oh, not the original one then, the black and white one.
Right, no, the Gil Gerard.
Gil Gerard, what a guy.
Yeah.
I always remember the dance scenes. He used to have like a disco on some kind of, and everybody would dance holding like a belt or something. It was really, really cool.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I think it was probably based in 2021. So if we're not all wearing silver suits and dancing with belts and things like that, I'm going to be really, really annoyed.
Well, it's actually even further. It's 2491 was the year Buck wakes up and he's in the future, and so that's actually the reason that my first track on the album is called 2491.
Ah.
In 1987, the final track is the year that he leaves Earth.
So, I didn't realise that. I'm not so much of a Buck Rogers fan as you, obviously. So,
no, I had to kind of do my research. It was of course one of the things I watched when I was, like 5 or something. But I didn't realize. I had to kind of go back and watch some things to kind of put it all back in perspective again.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've learned probably more than I need to know. But
I've got some drummers who tune into the show. So they'll want to know who your influences are, because I was thinking kind of techno or electronic drummers. You've got Cerrone is the man. I don't know whether you know Cerrone.
No, I don't.
He did a track called Supernature back in the 80s, I think it was. It was kind of that disco Giorgio Moroder. He was another kind of Giorgio Moroder type guy. But who are your heroes, drum heroes then?
Well, yeah, I have a pretty specific one actually, which is Jimmy Chamberlain from the Smashing Pumpkins.
Okay.
And, yeah, that's the Smashing Pumpkins is another one of my huge influences. Which again, you don't. That is probably only heard in my actual drumming itself, but not in melodically and guitar wise. That's really more kind of Ride and The Cure and that kind of thing. I learned to play drums by playing along to. I would just listen to CDs and play along to them and try to learn them. So a lot of what I played along to was a lot of Pearl Jam back at the time when I was 15. So that drummer, which was Dave Cruson, and then later David Abruzes. But once I saw Jimmy Chamberlain play for the first time, it was very unique to me, because he really is very unique, especially for a rock drummer. He's a jazz drummer that kind of ended up in a rock band.
Yeah,
and he's an extremely powerful, but he can play very, very melodic things on the toms that are very interesting, but then can go from very light-handed to extremely, extremely heavy and extremely fast. I mean, he is one of the kind of, to me, one of the most expressive rock drummers.
Okay, so as a non-drummer, then it's not just about hitting skins. It's all about you can actually develop the music from the drums.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the Smashing Pumpkins is really just Jimmy Chamberlain and Billy Corgan with supporting musicians, whoever they may be. The two of them basically wrote everything, and they're both kind of just those kinds of musicians that can just sit down and do whatever they want.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's, and of course, Billy is somebody who's very influenced by like The Cure and Depeche Mode also, and they've, of course, done covers of theirs. And yeah, I mean, that's Jimmy Chamberlain is pretty much the main influence on my drumming style.
So you've got drums in front. Are you surrounded by synthesizers as well? Have you suddenly accumulated loads and loads of keyboards or soft synths? Or
yeah, I kind of became a synthesizer addict. I liked Stereolab. That was one of my early influences, especially early Stereolab, which was lots of Moog keyboards, and
yeah.
I love that sound, but I didn't really, and even with Ride, who I love, they do a lot of, I just didn't realize at the time how much there were synthesized ARP patterns that they would use even just as an intro to a song, that they never had a need for a keyboard player on stage, but they would just play back these recordings. I didn't realize how much of that I liked. to go back to your earlier question, yeah, I ended up kind of getting addicted to analog synthesizers, and I ended up buying a couple of very, very old Rolands, like 1982 and 83, and a couple more modern ones.
Yeah,
that are mixed in. And so I one of the things that it in some ways almost kind of hinders me when writing synthwave is I'm kind of in a lot of ways doing it kind of the old-fashioned way with the addition of a computer, but I record everything as just MIDI data and go back and arrange it all, but everything's being pumped through the synthesizers in real time.
Yeah.
There isn't a lot of adding this in and adding that in, it's pretty much a straight hardware deal.
Do you produce hard copy vinyl or cassettes, or how do you get your audience, and how do you tempt your audience to listen to the stuff that you produce?
The majority of my listeners are on Spotify.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of downloads on Bandcamp as well, but Spotify is really the majority, especially for the synthwave. And a lot of it is, through the Twitter community. There's always there's a great synthwave community of producers and artists who all kind of encourage each other and help share things. And, when there's opportunities to be on someone's playlist, people make sure to share that. And then that's just kind of grown organically over time. As far as media, we have had cassettes made. We've done 2 cassette releases, which we still have plenty of tapes left. The first Velocity 128, my synthwave duo, the first release we did, and so far it's the only release, is actually called Betamax Video Club Volume 1, and that's available on Bandcamp on cassette. And then my first EP that I released, Cathode Ray Guns, I guess it's my second EP, I had that published on cassette as well, so that's also on Bandcamp.
Do you have family? Yeah,
I do. Yeah.
What do they think?
Oh, they think it's pretty funny to see Dad going out and put on a leather jacket and some kind of geeky T-shirt and go out and stand in a club and do all that hip stuff. And put on my members only jacket and go out to a club in DC.
Do they not like the kind of stuff that you do, or are they fans?
They're supportive, of course, but it's, my son, I've been able to get him into the Smashing Pumpkins, but
that's a result.
But the, really our family, our main music in our family is R&B, especially classic R&B, which is wonderful. So, and it's not just my wife, my son really, really loves classic, our old school, 50s through 80s R&B, well 90s too, since that's old school now.
So isn't it?
Right. So it's great because we've got everything pumping through the house at one time or another. So
is it a musical family? Are you from a musical family?
Not professionally. My grandmother was trained as a concert pianist. She was a music teacher for some time, mostly with private lessons and stuff. But and my mom certainly loves music and sang in the choir and that kind of thing and plays piano. And so I definitely grew up. My mom would play a lot of Simon and Garfunkel. She had a Paul Simon music book.
Yeah.
And sometimes I would, because I also started playing guitar at the same time I started playing drums, so I sometimes would, try to accompany her, though playing Paul Simon stuff on guitar is way over my playing abilities.
And you were banging the drums.
Yeah, the drums, I could handle that. I could handle a little, adding a little. I mean, one time we did do that one single time. My mom played the piano on Sound of Silence. It was really playing the guitar parts on piano. And I played drums along with it, but
it's not an album for its drum solos or anything like that.
Exactly.
You're just outside Washington.
I am. Yeah, I'm about 45 minutes west of the city.
We don't do politics or anything like that on this show because one, I'm not bright enough to do that kind of thing anyway. But what's it like living in you're in the epicenter of what's happening at the moment? Is it still a cool place to be, or is it Is it in the mess that the UK's in at the moment?
There's always hope.
We've always got to have hope.
Yeah, there's always hope. There's always, the 4-year runs are usually over. So hopefully this will be one that ends, because it's a rough time. I mean, there are a lot of people I'm close to who, the day after the election, felt like someone had just died. It was that same kind of feeling of disbelief and panic, and
yeah,
it was for the majority of the people I interact with, it was somewhat traumatic, and still is.
Yeah, I've got a couple of Americana questions for you.
Okay,
it's Halloween.
It will be, yes, almost there.
We never ever really celebrated Halloween, and then all of a sudden American came over and we did everything. You can buy absolutely everything to do with Halloween. So
really?
The question is, as a synthwave producer as well, you'll get this. So is it going to be like the E.T., the E.T. scene where they go out trick-or-treating? Is that what it's like down your street?
It will be, yes, absolutely.
Yeah?
There will be a million little kids going door to door and looking for candy, and yeah, absolutely. It's in our neighborhood is, because we're very suburban, it's filled with families of all ages, and so there's always a fresh number of young kids in the neighborhood to come through and go door to door. So yeah, it's very, very active here.
You got a lot to answer for over here, because we never used to do
Absolutely.
When I was a kid, we never did anything like that, and now all of a sudden it's like a holiday. In fact, the holiday season starts the Halloween thing started about 3 weeks ago over here. So Halloween started, then it'll just morph into Christmas, then into New Year, Valentine's Day and Easter. And then we have about 2 months where we don't celebrate anything at all. It's really weird these days.
Well, and for us, it pretty much starts with Halloween and then Thanksgiving.
Oh, you got Thanksgiving in between, haven't you? At least we don't. We have bonfire night. You don't have that.
No, we don't.
No, we have bonfire night, where somebody tried to blow up the Houses of Parliament back in the 1700s. Somebody's going to tweet already. It wasn't the 1700s, Casimir. They're bound to, but yeah, it's it was a long time ago anyway. But yeah, we celebrate that burning of Parliament, so that's always good.
Excellent.
And the other question is, do you play conkers?
I do not. Not.
Okay. Yeah, we've been just trying to find out whether it's just a British thing or not. But it's like a really weird game that we play over here. But at least we know that they don't do it in America. I can narrow it down by one continent. So at least I've narrowed it down a bit. Oh, the other question is, first of all, we've got to be able to get in touch with you. But what's the Jade Anvil Collective?
So that is a kind of a collective artist support label put together by our friends. I mean, actually, my friend John, another John, and the main founder of it is our friend Emily, who lives out in LA now, and they put this together with the intention both for releasing music and as just kind of an organized place or platform to help support artists that need really any kind of support. Emily will help various electronic producers with getting their music heard and helping book shows for them and that kind of thing. So it's just become, we think of it as kind of a record label. It's self-run, of course, and all of us are, you mostly just, it's a do-it-yourself kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just kind of a group of friends all just kind of trying to organize something.
Okay. So we need to know where we can get in touch with you on Spotify. I think I've still got you. Strange Attractors is on Spotify at the moment.
Yeah, and all of the releases are on Spotify.
Bandcamp.
Yeah, I think it's iterations. I think it's iterations.bandcamp.com.
I think I might have it open. Oh no, I've closed it down now. But I'll post it up onto the Facebook page and the Twitter page anyway, and we can follow you on Twitter as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and the Bandcamp is actually iterationsband.bandcamp.com because there's already another Iterations out there, I guess.
And that's ITERATIONS. So Iterations. Iterations Band. Yeah. Okay, and we can follow you on Twitter?
Yeah, Twitter is Iterations Music.
Yeah. And then Facebook as well?
Yeah, or Facebook is just Iterations.
Okay. And
Instagram is Iterations Official.
Oh, you've got Insta as well.
Yeah. I do a lot on Instagram. That's one of the places that's helped kind of, you post a little video of, playing a few measures from a song you're working on, and all of a sudden you've got 150 people watching it, and they go and look to see what else you've made, and it's actually a very helpful way to self-promote.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you very much, Eric Garwood. Thank you very much for joining us on the Casimir Engine Show.
Thanks so much for having me.
that was the Casimir Engine Show podcast. Thank you very much to Eric Garwood for joining us all the way from that there Washington. I'm the Casimir Engine. Thank you very much for tuning in. Spread the word, and I'll see you next week.
The Casimir Engine, reliably mediocre.